on the preparatory process for the World Conference. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of the United Nations Global Indigenous Youth Caucus, we would like to thank you for including youth in this important and meaningful conference. We remind you to work in unity and stand in solidarity as Indigenous peoples in this integral process for the betterment of our peoples and our communities. We first acknowledge the traditional Sapni land on which we are meeting. We thank the Sami people for their generous and gracious hospitality in hosting this preparatory conference for the high-level plenary meeting to be known as the World Conference on Indigenous Peoples, and in supporting the realisation of Indigenous peoples' human rights. We also thank the Chair of the Permanent Forum on Indigenous Issues, the Honourable Paul Kanyiki-Sina, and thank the distinguished Chair of the Expert Mechanism on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples, Chief Wilton Littlechild, for their leadership. This meeting at Alta presents a great opportunity to raise the voice of Indigenous youth as an integral part of the preparatory process. And we highlight the urgency to actualise full and effective youth participation within the UN before, during and after the World Conference on Indigenous Peoples. Indigenous youth reflect approximately 50% of the Indigenous population globally, and we bring unique perspectives and skills to the issues facing our peoples. As such, we need sufficient support through our representatives to properly participate within these UN mechanisms. We urge you to recall the foundations of Indigenous values, based on our age-old bonds to our environment, our kinship, and the honour of our ancestors and their incomparable wisdom. We strive to keep these values alive and ask the elders for continued support, guidance, and faith in your youth. Eventually, we too will pass this on to our next generation. There is an idea that we are the future. In truth, we are the present. We are excited, proud, thank you. We are excited, proud, and honoured to participate in this conference and hope that our work here will enable further, more effective youth participation. Thank you.
Well, very good afternoon for everybody. Mine. On behalf of the Global Indigenous Youth Caucus and the youth representatives of the Global Indigenous Coordinating Group, we have the honour to report and inform about the Indigenous Youth Preparatory process to this point on the high-level plenary meeting of the UN General Assembly, to be known as the World Conference on Indigenous Peoples. As a continuation of the work from the United Nations Permanent Forums, the Global Indigenous Youth Caucus selected 3 representatives for the GCG to act as Global Indigenous Youth Caucus representatives. Before that, the co-chair of the Global Indigenous Youth Caucus acted as an interim representative for the GCG. The Global Indigenous Youth Caucus representatives continue to take active part in the GCC preparatory process towards the high-level plenary meeting of the UN General Assembly, with a specific objective to bring forward the Global Indigenous Youth Caucus views and needs in these preparatory processes. Preserving through challenges in the preparatory process in regards to securing the full and effective participation of Indigenous youth, we have held and maintained a preparatory meeting and process and have selected 2 representatives for the draft editorial group of the Alta Declaration. Indigenous youth from 7 regions are present and are engaging in full and equal participation at the Global Indigenous Preparatory Conference. Mr. and Madam Chair, the Indigenous Youth Preparatory Meeting welcomes in its declaration the opportunity to raise the voice of Indigenous youth as part of the preparatory process of the high-level plenary meeting of the UN General Assembly, to be known as the World Conference on Indigenous Peoples, as approved in GA Resolution A/65/198. It welcomes further the GA Resolution A/66/296, specifying the modalities of participation by indigenous peoples in the World Conference. In the declaration, the Youth Preparatory Meeting is convinced that the World Conference has the potential for the full and equal participation of indigenous nations and peoples by employing the principles of free, prior and informed consent, and that it is an invaluable opportunity to effectuate the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples. The Global Indigenous Youth Preparatory Meeting was held in Inari, Finland, April 9 to 11, 2013. Indigenous youth representatives from Africa, Arctic, Asia, Central, South America and Caribbean, Eastern Europe, Russian Federation, Central Asia and Transcaucasia, North America and the Pacific gathered to discuss the process of the high-level plenary meeting and to make and agree on an outcome document that would highlight the views and positions of indigenous youth in this process. The meeting was co-hosted by the Finnish Sami Youth FSRY organization, and therefore the Global Indigenous Youth Caucus would like to express special gratitude for FSY for their hard work for allowing us the opportunity to have the meeting in the Sami people's traditional lands. As the budget of the Indigenous Youth Preparatory Meeting was limited, the Global Indigenous Youth Caucus was created, and we ensured that the indigenous youth had the necessary possibilities to get their voice heard and to be able to affect the Indigenous Youth Preparatory Meeting's outcome document through our regional networks and through our main email list. The Inari Declaration, finalized and adopted by the Youth Preparatory Meeting, contains some key topics and recommendations that the indigenous youth have highlighted as follows. 1. Right to full and effective participation. 2. Governance and sovereignty. 3. Identity. 4. Education. 5. Traditional livelihoods, lands and territories. 6. Forms of violence. 7. Health. Under each of these topics, we reaffirm the critical principles and further proposed action-oriented recommendations to be implemented by the states, UN agencies, indigenous organizations, and other relevant actors. However, we would like to emphasize that those recommendations are of great importance to us as indigenous peoples and youth, and therefore should be implemented regardless of the high-level plenary meeting. We sincerely invite all to review the Inner Youth Declaration and start the process of implementation with indigenous youth's full and equal participation. Mr. and Madam Chair, in the end I would like to highlight the importance of the full and effective participation of indigenous nations and peoples, including youth, in the whole process of the high-level plenary meeting of the UN General Assembly, to be known as the World Conference on Indigenous Peoples. We, the Global Indigenous Youth Preparatory Process, still see the potential of the high-level plenary meeting if it's based on a free, prior and informed consent of indigenous nations and peoples as equal participants in the international diplomatic process, and if the wide open participation of indigenous nations and peoples are proactively sought. We further continue to support that any result document protect and advance the inalienable and fundamental rights we have as indigenous nations and peoples, including our right to self-determination. We acknowledge that the Global Indigenous Youth Caucus is attending the Global Indigenous Preparatory Conference to participate as an equal to the other regional and world conference, and we thank you on that. Thank you, Mr. Chair and Madam.
Thanks very much to the